In the previous session, we tried to understand what exactly is matter. And in understanding matter, we also took various examples. For example, like electricity, and I also spoke about the camera that is in front of me, whether it was matter or not. Okay, but in this session, what we will be doing is we will try to understand what exactly is this particular something that I call matter is made up of. And to understand this much better, let me tell you something. People struggled in understanding this concept of matter. Why did they struggle? Was they had two different types of concepts in understanding what exactly was this matter made up of. One concept was, they believed that matter is any substance, as we discussed, which has some mass and volume, and it is a continuous substance. So just like a wooden piece, so wooden piece is also matter. So just like that, a continuous piece of substance was referred to as matter. And if I break that wood into two pieces, it will become two pieces of matter. That was it was believed back then. But there was one more theory that was very popular among it. That was that they believed that maybe matter could actually be made up of particles. Maybe one particle is actually combining with the other and grouping up together to form matter. So that is what the idea they had about. So these two actually contradicts each other, but we will try to finalize with one simple example which will exactly give you the results that we are actually expecting. Okay, here what we will do is, let's take a beaker filled with water. Let me take for example a beaker that is filled with water of 100 ml. Okay, now into this 100 ml beaker that is filled with what? Water. Now into this beaker I will add a spoon of sugar. So when I add a spoon of sugar and then I stir it with a glass rod, so the sugar will start to dissolve and then you will get something, a mixture of water with sugar. Correct? Now, can you tell me, do you see any difference here? I mean, in terms of color or anything? It will look very similar to just like water, correct? So what exactly happened here? The sugar we took in a spoon dissolved into this water and we were not able to see any amount of sugar. And the beautiful observation that you see here is, as we took 100 ml of water, it will also look that there is only 100 ml of water. If that is the case, then what happened to the sugar? Where did the sugar go? Is it magic that has disappeared? Or something is happening internally inside this water? So to understand that, I'll tell you that what's happening inside this particular beaker. The sugars are made up of sugar crystals, right? So when the sugar crystals, that is, to explain this, I have to use the concept of particle nature of the sugar. So when I dissolve the sugar, for example, if the sugar had been continuous, for example, even if the crystal actually has some mass, maybe 1 gram also, it should displace some amount of water in the upward direction. But that was not happening because the sugar started to actually get into the places that is present, the empty spaces between water. So that means there was no raise in volume because the sugar was made up of particles and there was space between particles of water to particle of water like this. Suppose if this is the container that is filled with water and these were the particles of water that is filled inside this container, the sugar, it started getting into the places where there is space, where there is some space between the particles of water. So it went into the spaces and it accumulated there. Because of that, there is no increase in volume. For example, if the matter has been continuous, let's see the difference. If the matter has been continuous, that means that there is no space between water to water. So everything is a single entity. So if the sugar is coming down, it has to displace some water in the upward direction. So that means there has to be some raise in water level. Correct? But that is not happening. So because water is not continuous, whereas it is made up of particles, and the sugar particles are getting accumulated into the places where the particles of water are at a distance. You understand? So by the simple observation, we can actually tell that matter is actually made up of particles. And to conclude with this simple experiment, I can tell that water is made up of water particles. Similarly, sugar is made up of sugar particles, and similarly gold is made up of gold particles, and silver is made up of silver particles. So the particles of matter are different for different substances. You understand this? Okay, now we understood that something there is known as matter, and this matter is made up of particles. Now here the question is, these particles that we are talking about, how small are they is the question. So can you guess how small they are? So to explain this, I will take a simple experiment. That is, how many of you know something known as potassium permanganate? The color of potassium permanganate is pink in color, and it is in the form of crystals. So they are pink crystals, and this potassium permanganate, is pink in color, and it is soluble in water just like your sugar. What I do is I will just take only 3 crystals of potassium permanganate. Then taking these 3 crystals, I will add this into the beaker which is already filled with water of 100 ml. Okay. Then what am I doing? I am adding this potassium permanganate. That is what? Potassium permanganate. I am adding this potassium permanganate into water of 100 ml. So as this is very pink in color, if you see this beaker, it will start to become pink. So what exactly is happening is, just like sugar getting accumulated into water, here the particles of potassium permanganate that are just present in 3 crystals are getting accommodated inside this water. And they turn this water completely pink. Okay. Then what I do is, I will take a spoon which could carry of 10 ml water. Sorry, 10 ml of this. I will take a spoon of 10 ml capacity, and I will take 10 ml from this particular sample. Okay. By taking this, I will add this into another beaker which is filled with 90 ml of water, and then this 10 ml is being added into this particular beaker. What is the observation that you see? This 10 ml is pink in color, and on adding this will also turn into pink. But if you see the intensity of color in this is very huge compared to this. So this tells us that there are more number of particles present in this 100 ml solution compared to this 100 ml solution. Correct? So there are less number of particles in this. That is the reason the intensity of color is decreasing. Okay. And again I take 10 ml from this, add it into a new beaker filled with 90 ml water. Okay. When I add this into this, I will see the same pink color. It will be very pale pink, less intensity than this. So if I keep repeating this process, the intensity of color, that is the pink present inside this water, becomes very pale. The reason why that is happening is the particles that are just present in these 3 crystals are getting distributed first in this solution, then less number of particles are getting distributed, less number, but still you see the pink color. That tells us that just in 3 crystals, there are millions of particles of potassium permanganate. That is the reason, even after diluting this in the sense that I am adding water into a solution which is already a solute is added to it, and I'm keeping on adding water into it. The process is known as dilution. So as I diluted this containers, I obtain a volume of a substance which is still having the color, but the particles that are present in the potassium permanganate are very less in number. Correct? So this tells us that the particles present in matter are very, 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 very small in size. So as you look here, the water particles are very small. Similarly, the sugar particles are so small, and similarly the potassium permanganate particles are really small, because that even after multiple dilutions, the color still remains intact with the solution. Do you understand this concept? So we understood 3 things. We learned about matter, and then we learned about what exactly is this matter made up of, and then we also learned about what is the size of this particles that the matter is made up of. Thank you.